Hi guys, welcome to the video, and in this video we'll see how we can create this particular data that we are viewing in this particular screen using the Dataraptors and integration procedures. And we will be also creating a simple Omniscript in this video. So we are gonna replicate this project where I can select an opportunity, and I will be also able to select the contacts. So to first achieve this functionality, we have to first retrieve the data, right? So for that, I'm gonna start from the scratch. So let's go to Omniscript, and we'll be creating a new Omniscript. um, will be say sample add opportunity contact roles, and I'll name it sample opportunity contact role. I'll just name it and I'll click on save. So this is a fresh Omniscript that has been created for us. Okay, so if you see here, I am seeing here as account contact details. Let me name into contact details. All right, there is some typo here. Okay, so I see I have renamed it contact details. So for that, I am gonna use two things. One is a lookup element, and let's not create this lookup element. Let's first see how we can fetch the data. If you see, we are getting this data here, and in the left side I also have this Omniscript here, and if I gonna preview it, I actually have to give an account ID. Let me copy this from here and let me paste it here. If you see, there is something called data JSON, and in the data JSON we should be able to see the contacts. It's not working according to us. I think I'm in the wrong place. Okay, so you can see that there are total 9 contacts, and uh, the opportunity that we can use, I mean that we can select using the lookup element. So that's not an issue. But the first thing is how we can get all this data. If you see, there is something called account, there is something called selected contacts. So that's what we are going to do. So if I go to the design panel, we are using an integration procedure to fetch all this data. So here, this is our new Omniscript, and in this Omniscript there is something called integration procedure action. So I'll just rename it IP underscore get account contact details. I'll also rename the field label to same, does not matter, but again it says integration procedure. So I guess we have to create an integration procedure. Let's start from the beginning. So here you can see there is this small link, and if I click on this create integration procedure, I can rename it to sample, and here I can get account contact details. It's already present. Let me change it to my name, actually sample or demo. I can write get account contact details. Once I click on save, it opens in a new sub tab, and the first thing we have to do is we have to save this Omniscript. Okay, so Inside, this is an integration procedure, and inside this integration procedure you see there are a lot of actions. Okay, so for now we need something like so that we will be able to fetch our data. To fetch our data we have something called Dataraptors. Okay, Dataraptor extract actions. There are basically three types of Dataraptors. Two types for extract. There is a turbo extract and normal Dataraptor extract. There is a Dataraptor transform to transfer your data, and there is something called Dataraptor post action to save your data. So we are gonna simply extract your data, so I am gonna use Dataraptor extract action. So I am gonna rename it to dr extract account contacts. Okay, now we also need to create an Dataraptor, right? If you scroll down, it says create a new Dataraptor. I'm gonna give it a name dr extract account contacts, and I'll click on save. So it actually opened a new Dataraptor for me, right? So what are you going to Dataraptor? There are you can see there are multiple tabs. There is something extract, there formula, output, options, and preview. So in extract step we define whatever the object we are trying to fetch. So I want to fetch the account details. I'll say account, and account will fetch the account by ID, and we will rename it account ID. Please notice this account ID, this is a dynamic variable, right? So in the output we will write something like account name. Maybe we want to name account name, and I will write account name, right? In the second part, let's say I want to get account ID. I'll name it to account ID. And let me actually do one thing. We usually don't do this like we usually don't extract the nodes as it is, but we create an object something like account, then we extract the nodes. So I'll do one thing. I'll add this account, and we will also write account colon account name. So to test it, so what are we going to do is we have extracted account and we are going to test it. So to test it we have something called preview, right? So we know that we are going to fetch it using this variable. So I'll go to preview. You can edit as JSON or edit as parameters. So I am clicking on new key value. So there is something called account ID, and I'll give the same account ID to see if our Dataraptor extract has been success or not. So I will click on execute, and you see we are able to get the account name and account IDs. So next thing is that we want to get all the contacts related to this account ID. So how can we configure? So the contact should be dependent on account, right? So to do that, I'll first select a contact, and I'll rename it also to contact, and we have the condition, right? Contact, the account ID should be equals to the account ID, this currently account ID. Either we simply use this one, or we can also use something like that account ID. Either way it will work. Okay, so since we are getting this, let's not make it complicated, so we'll be writing it as account ID. So for the contacts, right, I'll simply type contact, and let's say what are the things we're going to get. Let me try to also get a contact account ID. We can compare if we're getting it correct or not. That's the account ID should be matching with the account ID of the account. I'll rename it to account ID, and we also need something called first name. As soon as type first name, and what I'm gonna do is I'll also let me select it, the JSON path. Instead of first name, let me try to give it contact first name. Let's see what happens. Okay, and we also need the last name. Let me try to copy it. Contact first name, you see, we'll write contact last name. All right, so you get the first name, last name. What else we want to get? We can also get the mobile number. Mobile number should be a phone field, contact phone. Let me try to get phone only. Right. Okay, so we have the phone fields also. Let me try to get an email field. I'll just simply search for email and I'll write contact email. All right, so and we are gonna preview it, right? So you have the account ID. Let's see if we are able to get it or not. If you see, we are able to get all the list of contacts and list of account. There is a single account. Okay, so this is all about Dataraptor extract action. But we are not done yet, right? We want to pass this account ID dynamically and we want to use this extract action inside the integration procedure, right? Okay, so to pass this account ID, we need to pass this account ID dynamically, right? To do this, pass this account ID, we will write something. Whatever the value variable name we are mentioning here, we should be mentioning it here as well. Okay, and the data source, it can be something else, but for simplicity, let me give it as account ID as well. So here also to test that, we can give it something like that. I can also do one thing. I can edit the JSON and I'll copy the same parameter, and also here I'll edit the JSON and I'll paste it. To execute it, let's try to execute and see if we are getting the data or not. Okay, so we are not able to get the data, right? But we know we are passing it correctly. So there is something called debug. If we debug, we will be able to know why we are not getting the data. So there is something called execution sequence. So it says whatever the executions has been happened in sequence, it will show that. So it says that extract contacts has been executed. Next, we will see the debug. It says the account ID has been also passed successfully. And last we see the response. The response, if you see, we are also able to get whatever the Dataraptor response we have it here, right? But we are not able to get it in the response section, right? So something we can do is that there is something called as response section. Okay, so in response section we can simply write something, whatever the JSON path, right? We'll simply give the dir extract contacts, and if I now execute it, it will give me all the data, right? But let me try to do something. I don't want it to be contact. I want to be selected contact, right? I want to rename it. So what I can do is, now I don't want this, and it's always a good practice to not use the additional output. So I am checking this checkbox, return only additional output, and in the additional output I'll pass as selected contact, and in selected contact I'll pass this contact, right? And the selected contact, the variable should be, there is a more syntax, this is called more syntax, and in more syntax we want to give this extract account whatever the element name, because this element is giving us the values, and from this value we are trying to filter it out to contacts only, right? Let me try to see. No, it's contact only. Okay, and similarly if I want to give account, right, I'll copy this, and instead of contact I'll write account, and there is a effect symbol, you can click on it. Okay, now I have selected I have done two things. I have sent the additional payload and I have selected return only additional output. So now if I click on execute, you see we are able to get all this data. So I think we are good with this part of our Dataraptor and integration procedure part, where we want to extract this value and we want to show this value, right? There are three things. We are returning account, and let's say if I want to return the account ID, only the account ID, right? So what we can do is, let's say I want to get this account ID. I'll copy this simply, not from here, but here I'll leave the equal to sign as it is, account, and I'll write account ID. Okay, and I'll click on fx, and if you see, now there is no account ID present outside. Now if I'll execute it, it should be present. You see there is something called account ID. Now I think we are good with it, right? What I can do is, now I'll activate this person. So we have done this integration procedure part and we have done this Dataraptor part, right? So now the next point is how we can pass this account ID, right? Let's say we use this Dataraptor from some account page, right? So what I can do is, there is, if I click on preview, there is something called context ID, right? So I assume that the context ID is actually the account ID. So to the integration procedure, there is something also called remote properties, and there is also something called extra payload, and it's always a best practice to send only extra payload. So what I can do, I will pass the extra payload of the account ID, and the value should be context ID, and in key I'll write account ID. Okay, so now if you are gonna preview it, we also need the account ID, right? Let me repeat this. I want this context ID as account ID. So if I gonna preview it, in place of this context ID, I am gonna pass account ID, right? If I gonna pass it account ID, if you see, there should be an integration procedure run. Let me see, it's 90. Okay, it's still not able to, but I can expand it. Okay, there is no element, so it's showing empty. That's not a issue, but we can see that the account ID, we are passing it correctly, and the response we are getting it correctly as well. Okay, so in the next part, right, in the next part we are going to configure the selected contact and the account ID. So if I show you the response that I get, there is something called JSON blob, and in JSON blob we have pasted inside IP result, there is an account ID, there is account name. So let me do one quick thing, and we'll not dive much deeper into this now. We will just add a simple field and we'll see if the account ID is getting populated or not. So let me do one thing. There is something called text block, right? In the text block, I can write something account name. Let's just write the account name, and it's also same. To get the account name, I'll write account name. Why I wrote account name, and I can also make it bold, like account name. So what is this account name? If you see here, we are getting inside the account object, there is account name. So this is a merge build syntax that we use in Velocity. Okay, so let's preview it and see if we are able to get it or not. All right, so we are able to get the account name for now, right? So what are we gonna do next? In our next thing, we are gonna configure a lookup, and we are gonna configure and contact. All right, so to configure and lookup and contact, let me come here. There is something called lookup. I'll drag a lookup here, right? So in lookup, it's we are, if you see here, we are allowing the user to select an opportunity that's only related to the particular account. say there is this Acme account, you will be able to see all the opportunities related to this account, Acme account. Let me see. I think this has a single opportunity, so for now it's going to show a single opportunity. So that's fine, but we should be able to get that single opportunity. Let me close this. Now we have made this as lookup, and I'll name it as um, select opti maybe, and I'll rename it select opportunity. So I have created configured a lookup, right? But I want the opportunity only related to this particular account, Acme account. So what I can do, there is something called data source type. Now we can select a subject, and in data source and filter value, it's same. It we have same like Dataraptor, but it gives the data from a single object. So in the data source again, I am going to give account ID, because we are getting account ID from this integration procedure, right? And the filter value is something, the value that we are going to use dynamically in future. Okay, so when I say dynamic, I'll say you. So there is something called query configuration. We will be using this account ID in the query configuration. So to do that, I am clicking on add a new lookup query configuration. Okay. So in this lookup query configuration, first we need to see what we are getting. For us, we are going to see the opportunity. So let me scroll it. Okay, it is here. And in the opportunity, the account ID field should be equals to the account ID filter value that I am showing here. Okay. So let me type account ID. All right. And there is something called JSON path. I'll write as selected opportunity. Okay, and we are also going to use this JSON path in future. So you see, this data source I am passing it as here. You can also pass name is at context ID instead of account ID, right? We don't need that from integration procedure. Either way, it is fine. So we get this context ID and we filter it using account ID, and using account ID is get the JSON path. Okay, so when you search for a lookup, there should be a label and there should be a value. Okay, so for the value, we know that we are getting under the selected of the value. So to the value we are setting as the ID, right? And for the name, okay, for the label we'll set it as name. Okay, I'll click on preview. Now we see the integration procedure has run for us. Okay, and I'll clear the log. There is nothing much in data JSON, and I'll try if I'm able to select an opportunity or not. So you can see since there is only single opportunity, I'm able to select the opportunity. Once I select it, you see there should be a node created. Step 1, select opti. The select opti is the name of this lookup. And if I show you the action debugger, it took the request data and it gave you the response here, right? So this is all about how we can use integration procedure and Dataraptor extract, and how we can use the lookup. Okay, in next part we are going to see how we can use the edit block. Edit block in the sense we are going to fetch all the contacts. We actually already did fetch all the contacts. If you see here in the preview, we have already fetched all the contacts, but we have not used it like this. So there are multiple configurations that we need to do, right? So I'll see you in the next video, and